On for a Carroll County teen accused of killing her mother and stepfather.
Clients advising that the mother and the stepfather are called to the touch. They think they're beyond CPR and doesn't see anything around them that's suspicious. Law enforcement is en route with you.
One morning, a chilling 911 call came from Carrollton-Tyus Road in Georgia. On the line was a 16-year-old girl who would soon become the focus of one of the most disturbing true crime cases. Her name was Sarah Grace Patrick, a teenager known online for her growing TikTok presence. That morning, she told dispatchers that her parents were cold to the touch. Inside the modest home, deputies found James and Kristen Brock dead from gunshot wounds. What began as a tragedy quickly turned into a murder investigation that gripped Georgia and spread across social media platforms. The public wanted to know, was this the shocking story of a grieving teen influencer, or the dark reality of a calculated double homicide? Over the next 5 months, investigators pieced together a case that combined family turmoil, digital evidence, and haunting contradictions. The first discovery came from Sarah's 5-year-old half-sister. She was the one who walked into her parents' bedroom that morning and found them lifeless. That detail alone added to the horror, a child experiencing something no one should ever see. Sarah herself appeared distraught. On the 911 call, she cried for help. To neighbors and deputies, she looked like a daughter devastated by sudden loss. But investigators soon noticed the crime scene told a very specific story. No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen, the victims killed in bed, and the murder weapon missing. Whoever pulled the trigger had come with intent and left with the gun. To understand how this family ended up in such a tragedy, you have to know the complicated history behind the Patrick Brock household. Sarah's mother, Kristen, had divorced her biological father, Daniel Patrick, in 2019. She then entered a relationship with James Brock. Both Kristen and James had extensive criminal records tied to drugs and theft. Kristen pleaded guilty to drug possession in 2018, receiving probation and fines. In 2017, James faced an even longer list of charges, including cocaine possession, theft, and obstruction of officers. His plea deal barred him from owning firearms, a detail investigators would later revisit when trying to trace the missing murder weapon. The environment became so unsafe that Daniel Patrick fought for custody of Sarah. Court records documented disturbing claims, drug use in the home, unsafe visitors, and even accounts of Sarah herself describing to authorities where drugs were hidden. For about a year, Sarah lived with their father. But in time, custody shifted again, and the family seemed to enter what looked like a redemption arc. By 2024, James and Kristen had turned their lives around. They got sober, joined a church, and even underwent baptisms. James, meanwhile, battled a life-threatening heart condition and lived with a left ventricular assist device, a machine that kept his heart beating while he awaited a transplant. To friends and relatives, the family looked stable again. They had reunited with Sarah and her little sister together. Church members saw them as devoted, faithful, and active in the community. But investigators would later say that behind the redemption story, tension still lingered. The night before the murders, Sarah posted that her final words with her parents were simple goodnights and "I love you." She described the sound of James's heart machine, but nothing else. No gunshots, no screaming. Her 5-year-old sister told a different story. In her forensic interview, she recalled hearing the gunshots. That contradiction set off alarms for investigators. In a small Georgia home, how could a teenager sleep through multiple gunshots when a child clearly remembered them? In the following days, Sarah became active on TikTok. She posted emotional clips with captions like, "I just want my mama," and "I feel like I'm in a horror movie that never ends." The internet responded with sympathy. But Sarah didn't stop there. She reached out directly to true crime creators, asking them to cover her parents' case. Some creators later admitted they were unsettled. Why would someone request coverage if they were later accused of the crime themselves?
Why would you ask me to cover a case where you are going to get arrested for taking your parents' lives?
To some, it looked like a desperate cry for awareness. To others, it looked like an attempt to control the narrative. 2 weeks later, at the Catalyst Church funeral, Sarah delivered a composed eulogy. Her words sounded more polished than emotional to some attendees. She ended with the phrase, "I'm sorry," which would later be debated endlessly online. Was it an apology for showing emotion, a nervous habit, or something far more telling? Meanwhile, investigators worked quietly behind the scenes with the FBI and Georgia Bureau of Investigation. They pulled data from Sarah's phone, which reportedly showed activity during the very hours she claimed to be asleep. They found deleted communications they believed were tied to motive, and with every search warrant and lab analysis, the picture investigators painted became more troubling.
The very moment the 911 call was received, a relentless investigation began, one that would span months, consume thousands of man-hours, and require the full weight of the local and federal law enforcement agency partnerships.
By July 2025, they made their move. Sarah and her father were called to pick up her phone and jewelry from the sheriff's office. Instead, the visit turned into a 4-hour interrogation. Hours after leaving, Daniel Patrick got a call. Bring Sarah back by 10 a.m. the next morning, or U.S. Marshals would come for her.
Sarah Grace Patrick has been taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of murder and 2 counts of aggravated assault in connection with the deaths of her mother and her stepfather.
At a press conference, investigators announced they had built their case on mountains of digital and physical evidence. They cited the lack of forced entry, the contradictory statements, the missing weapon, and the phone activity. To them, it was enough to move forward with prosecution. But the defense has its own arguments, that the LVAD machine could mask sounds, that notifications can create the appearance of phone use, that grief on social media isn't proof of guilt. They will push for reasonable doubt, emphasizing that no weapon was recovered and that evidence can be interpreted in different ways. For the Carrollton community, the case left a devastating mark. 2 church members are gone, a 5-year-old orphaned, and a teenager facing life in prison. Across social media, debates rage. Is Sarah a manipulative killer or a misunderstood girl caught in tragedy? What's next is the long legal process. Motions, evidence hearings, and potentially a trial, where jurors will decide whether Sarah Grace Patrick is guilty of murder, or whether the state's case leaves room for doubt. This case blends themes that fascinate and disturb: family turmoil, addiction, redemption, and the impact of social media on modern crime. This has been the story of Sarah Grace Patrick, a Georgia teenager whose rise on TikTok turned into headlines of murder. The case is ongoing, and all individuals are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. The question now is, what do you believe?